Jeffrey Collins with the Associated Press. Mr. Suttles, what do you think is what's the optimum amount of oil that the riser insertion tube should be able to take out, roughly speaking, of the total volume of the leak?
Yeah, it's very difficult to know the answer to that. I would say if we could get up as much as half or more of the total flow, so if we could actually see this recovering, say, in excess of 2,000 barrels a day, I think we would all be extraordinarily pleased. But I would tell you, I'm very pleased to say that we're already capturing over 1,000 barrels a day. But what's critical here is we not introduce water into the system, because at that point it would probably stop working. So we'll be taking this increase in rate, doing it very, very carefully.
Next question.
Elizabeth Shogren with National Public Radio. There have been some reports about the oil getting into the loop current that flows not far, I guess, from where the leak has been seen. Do you have any confirmation from NOAA or elsewhere that this is happening? And if so, what are your concerns related to that?
We are working very carefully with NOAA, and we know that the oil has not entered the loop current at this time. There might be some leading edge sheen that's getting closer to the loop current, but it isn't. This spill has not entered the loop current. The important thing to focus on is the volume of oil that we have on the surface, and it's being reduced as we speak. And as Doug Suttles talked to you about in his overflight, we are confident that we can continue to fight this spill offshore, and then we're working with the state of Florida and with NOAA to analyze a trajectory of what if the volume were to increase, because you have a problem with any of these mitigation measures that you're doing. What if the volume were to increase, and what impact might that have? But the loop current is something we're watching very carefully, but at this time, this oil spill has not intersected with the loop current, and we're staying in constant contact with the state of Florida and with others about that potential. Leading edge sheen is getting close, but has not been picked up by the loop current yet. We're monitoring it very carefully. The leading edge sheen of the spill has not entered the loop current even. Now, we will watch very carefully for any volumes of oil, but the larger volume of oil near the wellhead is several miles from this loop current.
Any other questions from the audience?
Jamie Tarabay from National Public Radio. You're going to have to bear with me because I'm going to read you a question from someone in our science desk who's much brainier about this sort of thing than I am. There's apparently a 9-inch drill pipe running through the blowout preventer. Presumably the choke and kill bypass lines would pump mud and cement into the space between the wall of the blowout preventer and the drill pipe. How would that clog what BP says is the main flow, that is the oil inside the 9-inch drill pipe? How far down the hole does the 9-inch drill pipe extend below the loop? And if that's the plan, are you worried that mud and cement will flow up the drill pipe, at least initially? And what would that do to the 4-inch pipe sucking oil and gas to the surface?
That's a complicated question. So I don't blame you for reading it, actually. And what I don't want to do is spend the next 20 minutes trying to answer it, because I don't think people would want me to do that. What a dynamic kill does, or a top kill, as Mike's already described, is by pumping at very high velocity down these what are called choke and kill lines, which are 2-3-inch lines which enter the blowout preventer. If we pump at very high rates with heavy fluids, we should be able to overcome the flow, and it will go down the path of the flow is how it should work if it's successful. And at some point, the weight of those fluids, because these fluids are much heavier than oil and much heavier than water, they will actually stop the well from flowing. And that's the way it works. If we were to go into more detail, to be honest, we'd have to get out some drawings and actually do a much more detailed explanation.
But one of the questions Jamie wanted to say was, does attempting that destroy your temporary fix?
No, very, very good clarifications. So for anyone who didn't hear that, it was by doing this, do we somehow impact the riser insertion tool and the ability to capture this flow? No, is the answer to that question. The riser insertion tool is at the end of the almost 5,000 foot long riser where the flow is coming out. So it should not prevent us from doing that if the dynamic kill is unsuccessful.
Anybody else got it?
Can I just add, I just want to come back to the previous question briefly. I think one of the perceptions we need to somehow provide more information to get past is there are not large quantities of thick oil on the sea anywhere associated with the spill, even near the well. So as we ask questions about the loop current and others, it's important to actually understand there is not thick, heavy oil on the ocean out here around this particular well. In fact, the oil is the thinnest I've seen yet, but we need to make sure we understand, as the Admiral said, most of the area impacted is actually sheen.
Admiral Landry, on this regards the NOAA statement. Am I understanding it correctly? Is NOAA saying that there is no solid scientific evidence that there are these large underwater oil plumes that were reported this weekend?
No,
Can you state your name for me, please?
it's Charlie Henry, Henry. No, to answer your question is NOAA is not saying that there's not hydrocarbons that are from this well in the water. I think a lot of it comes to, if you talk to actually the researchers, which actually were doing pretty good work from the Pelican, and but I think what the NOAA statement was that a lot of the information was taken out of context and was incorrect, and I think that is true. What the researchers found is using different types of instruments, they were able to detect well, what we think is hydrocarbons in the water column. That was stated as oil, but it wasn't like oil you could see. The researcher itself said when you look at the sample jars, they were as clean as you couldn't see anything in them. Okay, that information has not been analyzed. None of the quantitative analysis has been done on that. We don't even know what for sure is in those samples. So basically, a lot of reports came out and were taken to another level that right now they don't have the quantitative analysis or the information to even support it. And we had a long talk yesterday with the folks that were doing that cruise, and I think they were doing good science and doing good work. But I think it's how it was related to as these layers of oil, which is totally untrue. We do know that when we talked in the past about how this oil comes up as droplets that come to the surface, some of those droplets don't make it to the surface. And we've always estimated about how much they were, and we know that it's a relatively small fraction of that. And we've been doing studies and surveys and tracking and looking at that. And it factors into some of the mitigation techniques we're doing. So the key is whether or not they detected anything or not, we don't know from their analysis. They don't have the data back. I'm really curious to see the data. We'll use the data. I think they did good work, but they don't have the information yet to report it. It's how that was restated gave an impression that was not true.
We have time for two more questions from the audience. We'll take one from sir in the blue shirt and then from the front row.
This is for Mr. Settles. I'm Matt Gutman from ABC. Hello. First of all, why top kill and not junk shot? Although I think you may have answered that partially. And you said that if you manage to do the top kill later this week or this weekend, that will be the end of this incident. Does that mean you will stop drilling the relief wells? And, you know, there are two of them, I guess. And lastly, does that mean that if you do control the well, does that mean you may at one point in the future decide to pump oil from it?
No, very good question. So the first is that we still have available a number of different techniques to stop the flow, and we continue to evaluate those. And as Mike's already mentioned, we work with the MMS on working through those procedures. As we stand here today, we think the most likely one we'll deploy is top kill. That is the method we think we'll be deploying later this week or this weekend. And after we pump the heavy fluids, we'll follow that with cement. But it's critical to know that that should stop the flow. It doesn't end the well. We will actually finish the relief well and pump cement into the bottom of this particular well. There is absolutely no intent to ever produce this well. We intend to fill up the bottom portion of this well with cement. It will never be produced, and we need to make sure people are very, very clear on that.
The first part, why not junk shot?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. What we're trying to do is the principle we've talked about since the beginning was actually making sure we took no action which could make it worse or denies us other opportunities in the future. And we actually, if we try top kill and it's unsuccessful, we can always try junk shot after that. But there are certain risks with junk shot which actually might deny us the opportunity for other options. So that's why we're headed the direction we are just now. But I'd stress here, the final decision hasn't been made, and we'll be using the best experts inside of BP and the MMS and other government agencies when we finally make that final call. But that's the view as we stand here right now.